Hello, and welcome back to the making of Big Thunder Mountain Railroad. In today's video I am working on the second chain lift, the dinosaur skeleton in the town of Rainbow Ridge. Also I'd like to point out that I cut out a lot of footage of this backstage area and Rancho del Zocalo, so this was going to be about an hour-long video. Didn't want that to happen, so I cut it. So right now I'm going to be working on the second chain lift, so this is the one that's diagonal of the whole track layout. This is also the chain lift that's famous for the goat that's eating dynamite, which I did not build. I might add it later on. I don't think I'm going to. But you're going to see how I work on doing the rock work for this diagonal section. Also working on the back side where Coyote Canyon is. That's right before chain lift number 2. So all these names that I'm saying are all the proper names for this ride's scenery, or basically the areas that they were designed or they were named whatsoever. So I'm going to try out some interesting techniques for making this chain lift, because the challenge for this chain lift was that I couldn't use I had to find a different piece to do wood markings going up, or wood planks going up the chain lift, because it's at diagonal. That was also the challenging part for this. I could have made this straight, but I think I would have lost so much into its layout, because this layout is unique with that chain lift at a diagonal, and I didn't want to take that away from this layout, so I kept it as close as possible as I can. Right here I'm working on a little TNT shack that's right next to the goat. Just a very simple shack, putting down a couple parts, boards and borders, things like that. Nothing much to it. Yeah, this was the easy part, actually. This section here was the easiest part to do versus the giant spire. So I found this one the more entertaining to work on, things like that. The footage that I cut out was I worked on Del Zocalo and the backstage of the train yard. I had about an hour of footage on that basically, and I felt that was not as entertaining to watch versus, I don't know, me working on the dinosaur or this second chain lift. Here I'm using diagonal walls as the backdrop of this chain lift, because it is a wooden backboard that follows you all the way up. Here I'm going to put some of the foundations for Coyote Canyon. This is where the dark, I think, drop is for the ride. It's like a dark drop in a way, yeah. This is where the accident occurred on this ride, actually, when it happened. I'm not going to discuss more into that, but that's where the accident happened for this ride. This ride had one accident back in, I don't remember, regardless. Here I'm going to do some finishing touches onto this corner. This is where the possum tree is, and I'm going to use some of those cylinder pieces to fill in dirt and bring it up and kind of hug the track more. That's a cool technique, I think, is using the spheres and the shapes and things like that to kind of imitate groundwork. That's what I've been doing with that. Here's the wooden barn that's part of the turnaround right into second chain lift. It is a wooden barn, so I kind of kept it the same. I didn't want to hide it in rock or something. In real life, it is just a shed covered in trees and things like that. You don't see it from anywhere else. You can see it on Google Maps a little bit, actually. So I'm kind of just imitating that, and it's going to be here, and it's very simple. I like the size that I chose here, because before this track was actually a bigger turnaround, and it actually took so much space that I didn't have room on the map before to do the backstage area. But ever since I redesigned it, it's given me so much more space to do the backstage area. So this map will be on the workshop when this video goes up, so you'll probably see in the description below. You guys look, and then you guys can get to explore it yourselves. It's a pretty fun map. I think I did a pretty okay job. I have some gripes on my own in personal touches to it that I think I could have done better on, but I think it represents the ride pretty well. So we're just going to continue working on this. The hard part about this section was building at diagonal this entire time, because this game is only really meant for 90 degrees and things like that, but building at diagonal is kind of the difficult part. But it was a fun challenge nonetheless, so something new to learn, something to learn from, and to get great inspirations from and stuff like that. So just working on that stuff. Finishing up rock work again. This is going to be more rock work again today. Tons of rocks. Here I'm going to place some, I don't know, a wooden platform to give my idea where the TNT and boxes are. Pretty simple details, things like that. Here I'm going to put down the hidden Mickey that's on the ride. So there is a hidden Mickey right before the second chain lift. To note that the hidden Mickey here, I'm making it this way up versus the other way around where the ears are actually facing towards down. It's actually an upside down Mickey to kind of hide it more, but I decided to make it more noticeable on this and kind of just like play around with it. So I'm going to jump around onto doing the second chain lifts boards, and I figured a way to use the borders because I have construction anarchy on, and I use the diagonal borders and I stack them like little steps, and it really makes this look like a wooden plank or a wooden board, and it looks like steps going up. And so that took the most scenery actually, and then this section of the ride actually loses a lot of FPS, but it was fun figuring it out using the borders because of construction anarchy. See, if I didn't have construction anarchy on, I don't think this ride would have been so accurate, but I do love this mod. This mod is just so great to have. I want to also do those I want to do that like border technique later for a roof idea. We'll see in a second. I'm building this. I think this is like a crane house or something that is above the chain lift right before it holds packages or maybe like helps with the chain lift. I know that the ride has a steam boiler right before the chain lift, so it's suggesting that the steam boiler is basically pulling the train up the chain lift. So that's kind of, I think, part of this makeshift chain lift for the trains. The trains are not strong enough to climb up. So that's kind of what this thing is. I'm also going to build the steam boiler on normal grid, because if I made it diagonal I would have lost so much detail of it because the shapes don't go diagonal, and I wanted to make sure that it looked like a steam generator or something, so I'm going to do that. Also a little technique before is I used those little cemetery burial patches as like dirt piles and stuff like that on edges of rocks. I think it's a really cool idea to do that, so try doing that in little like piles of dirt, because they go through each other, so might as well just make piles of them and things like that. Here I'm going to finish up doing that little steam generator, steam turbine thing that will do the chain lift thing, so just adding the normal shapes, then pipes, things like that. I mean, I basically used every single possible scenery in Parkitect to get what I wanted in detail. So this is just very simple. That's why it's at this angle. It kind of looks funny, but I'll give it that. I'll just say that it works so far. So here I'm going to try to test out to do some different type of roofing. At first I want to just do a normal, I don't know, what is a triangle pyramid. That didn't work out. So again, construction anarchy to the rescue. I used the borders, and then I did on I think 9 grid. No, that looks 8 grid. No, that's 8 grid. So I did this and just stepped it every so often because of the precise measurements, and then copied that over and plopped it on top. So also think this was a cool technique to do, using borders as a roof piece. Also looks like slats of wood or something, so it actually brings in more detail. So I put this in, and it actually finishes off the roof. Looks really nice. Also the same technique here too was there is no diagonal slant walls, so I did this with borders. Again, this is a really cool idea. Just take the border, because of construction anarchy I can just put them super close to each other, and it brought out this, like, I don't know, this finished wood thing that kind of builds up off on top of it, and did that. And then I did pillars in between to give it the wooden structure feel, and then that actually filled itself in. So I was very, very pleased and surprised I could get that detail onto that diagonal chain lift. Now on to doing the Helix. The Helixes in this game, I do have a gripe with it. The Helixes in this game sometimes do a little too tight or too clearance. The clearance issue there's a clearance issue because of the guests in this game have quite giant heads, and for some reason with this coaster and I think the wooden coaster, supports for some reason get into their faces, and it just looks weird. So when building this Helix, I had to have in mind to make it a little bit oblong or a little bit not like a real Helix, because the real Helix in Big Thunder, the Helix gets wider as it goes down the Helix, and that's kind of how I imitated this here too. So you might see clipping when you explore this ride on in the game, so I can't really get rid of that, but that is a gripe for me, is that the scale of this game is a little weird, and so it made that clipping issue. But I tried my best with it because I was testing this ride without guests, and I mean I was also on Scenario Editor, so here I'm just gonna do cylinders again, and then with combination of the flat cylinder discs pieces, and then with regular rocks to give that rock feeling of this Helix and stuff like that. So that's what I'm going to do. I added some wooden beams to give it that wooden part, because the ride made it it has like a trestle on top, and it goes through the trestle into a tunnel and then out the bottom into the last stretch to the third chain lift, as I can explain. Yeah, it's something like that. So this is the closest part of the ride that you actually get to see from the queue line, because you can see this from the queue line. When you're at the queue line, you can see the Helix, and then you can see the dinosaur pit, and that's basically it. That's the only thing you can see of the ride from the queue line. And the other section you can see is the one off the river and the bridge on the pathway that goes behind Big Thunder. So that's the only two places you get to see the ride the most. Because most of the ride is actually kept behind inside this rock canyon-esque area. So that's kind of how it was designed. It's a cool way to kind of keep the outside world from creeping into your roller coaster. It's a really cool idea. It's a technique you could probably use in other rides too, something like that. I mean, most of the rides at Disneyland are hidden inside a building, or it's hidden inside a mountain range of some sort, and only like small sections of the ride are shown and give you interest to get in line, and then you enjoy that ride, hopefully. So just finishing up, again, more rock work. There's really never too much rock work, maybe. I don't know if there's a limit. It's all depending on how you guys feel when you're working on rocks, because it kind of can get overwhelming. So we're going to skip over to working on the track system and Rainbow Ridge area. I found this the most fun because I had to make up fixed switches for all the tracks, because in real life they did use this as the train yard, because they did have a spur off to the side where they would park a train before loading it, and they would have it ready for dispatch, and then they would also use that to pull trains off the track and send them back into the roundhouse, things like that. So I think you saw it earlier. I think the last video I already showed you how I did switches. So I'm just here, this is what I'm trying to just finish up some of the details. This track here that goes down really steep is where an actual little locomotive that actually sits in the queue line. I did not build that. I need to maybe build that. Oh well, I completely forgot to do that. I did make the track and the buffer and some other things. I made also the area here too with the water wheel and the water trough that goes over the queue line and things like that. Here you might see me do a little bit, of retracking of the second track, so that goes into the parking. So I had to readjust it from another piece of track. There's like 4 mine trains on this map, just to give me all those tracks and switches and stuff like that I wanted. So there's actually like 5 mine train rides in this map, which is just funny. Here I'm drawing out the planning of where the roundhouse should sit, and it should literally sit basically behind that turnaround of that barn, and it fits actually perfectly. What you won't see in this video is me working on that section, but because I didn't find that as entertaining for you guys to watch them. Me just working on the actual rest of the details here. So let's just cut on to doing this is the switch that goes from the roundhouse directly to the main line. So this is like in the morning. So in the morning, all the trains would be parked, and then the morning crew comes in, opens that up, and then sends all the trains in through this switch right onto the main line without having to go to the other spur. So here's the magic of taking a wall, getting it down to super small increments because of construction anarchy, and putting them on, I think, the 9 grid, and kind of just lining them up and making them look like track. I got the color as close as possible. I could probably get it closer, but that would took me even longer. And then I just did some simple borders. Again, construction anarchy saves it. I just do this, makes it look like ties. That track that's up toward the top is not finalized. That will change because I figured out I could use an actual turn from the mine train ride and just repeat that switch again, or that switch technique again with different walls going the other way. So it will be more fixed when you guys actually get to play on it. You might actually see it in the POV that will be later on in this video. Because if you guys stick around, there's a full POV of this ride. You get to see it in all its glory and stuff like that. So just a reminder. I should have said that in the beginning. Regardless. Moving on, so just doing some dirt patches to cover up those overextending ties, because the ties shouldn't really be that big, and just keep it from there. So, on to making, hopefully, the town, right? Yep, we're going to skip around a little bit. So this is just working on that little water trough thing. It was, I think it's a water thing that takes water and puts it into buckets that turn something and lift something out. So it's like some type of other mine or something. I can't remember. So here we're going to skip ahead onto, I did something off screen, but I think that was fine. So here's some of the buildings. I kept the buildings very simple because I honestly, the ride has like what, 12 buildings there that are really small. They're scaled down on purpose to give you that impression that they're far away or up on a hill. So in Parkitect that kind of doesn't work. So the scaling kind of has to stay the same. So I kind of changed it up a bit and just made it simple buildings, 4 buildings, 4 different colors, and then your main general building would be your the white tannish looking building that would be made of like stucco or something like that. So I kind of just kept it that way. Didn't really want to make more buildings. I think the buildings that I picked actually represents a little bit of Rainbow Ridge. I did the reversed window technique again to make it look like signs. I did them for all the buildings. The green building actually sits half grid between 2 staircases, and so I wanted to imitate small baby staircases, and it's kind of what I did here. I think it worked out pretty well. I don't think guests can even walk through it because the walls would actually block it. But it was a cool little technique I can do. Again, construction anarchy. Great mod if you're not too intimidated by the way you can bend any piece you want to your desire. Here I want to work on finishing that wonderful little general store. In hindsight, I think I could have made the general store a little bit smaller and maybe added an extra building. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to go back and change it, but it's a thought of mine, like I could have made it a little smaller to maybe accompany another building behind it on the ridge or something. But regardless, I'm going to do some half roofing here to give it that overhang. And I'm going to take some cylinders, make them as small as possible, and do some like wooden beams across, like that's the support inside the roof. And then do some of the windows and 2 doors to simulate maybe a double door, but maybe there's another way I can do it later on. I mean, this experiments I'm still learning as I build things that I've never built, stuff like that. This building is actually one of the smallest because it doesn't need to be a full building. It's like supposed to be like more of a facade because it goes up against second chain lift here. So I just kind of made a very simple blue building. And just finishing up with lights, things like that. Testing out in lights probably later on. I don't even have any of the walls for Del Zocalo up yet, but that will be added later. That was another hour or 2 of work when I finished the rest of the map, because I did finish this a while ago, but I also needed to finish Del Zocalo, which is the restaurant that sits next to Big Thunder. And so the restaurant was actually there first before Big Thunder Mountain was ever built. So they had to, I think, build around Del Zocalo, maybe. So I'm just going to finish up this little shed. This is like a little door shed entrance that where the trains go into. It's actually a little shed. Here I'm going to do some pre-planning of where Del Zocalo will live. I think some of those walls do change. Regardless, you're not going to see most of the building of Del Zocalo because it wasn't interesting to build. I was just finishing up walls. I put the entrance of this park in Del Zocalo and a restaurant, break room, and a depot in there. Yeah, I did a depot. Here's the planning of some of the little pathways of Frontierland. So Del Zocalo Park and a little bit of the shooting galleries on the side, making the little path that goes in between Del Zocalo into another path that goes toward the back, toward like I think the restrooms or something. But yeah, there's a little path that goes back there. So just finishing up things like that. Also, you don't see like I work on some of the mountains and stuff like that in the back. I did some more tree forests and stuff like that to fill it up. Okay, and now on to building the wonderful Dino skeleton, or the Dino dig site. So this one was a challenge because again, this piece of track is at a diagonal and is going to be a little bit more of a challenge, and building a skeleton would require a little bit of extra work, and so I had the already decided the chance that I'm going to make it out of shapes, especially the cube, because I think the cube is the best way we can go. I didn't want to make it out of cylinders. It would have looked too, I don't know, round, not rigid enough. So I did a skeleton before. Yeah, I did a skeleton before in my scenario called Dino Island. I made a Brachiosaurus or something. So I had some experience in making skeletons, so this is kind of the idea. So the skeleton was kind of like in the rockwork, and the ribs kind of hang over the track. And then I'm going to build onto the dinosaur's head. Dinosaur head, I used the cylinder pieces again, the flat ones, and then cones for teeth. Then cones upside down for more teeth. I think the T-Rex, it's not a T-Rex, I think it's an Allosaur. Even though people call it the T-Rex, because I think it's a different dinosaur. So I'm just going to do some of the regular shapes, things like that. It's very well put, I think. So, and just finishing up some of the details, things like that. And the eyeball, and maybe some of the other things where his nostrils would go and other sections. Very simple work. I think it turned out pretty well to look like a dinosaur. And then add some of the shapes on top to give it that more mean look. I don't know. And then testing out some lighting, see where things are, and then building a wooden structure underneath the track to simulate it's collapsed under and then hits water and things like that. So this is where I'm testing out where the lights should go. It is lit at night, and I made it like an orange color. And again, the lights are at normal grid shape, not at the, I don't know, the diagonal. There's no diagonal lights, so it is what it is. So here I'm just doing some of the finishing touches of lights to figure out where some of the lighting should go, and the entrance. It looks really nice at night. I really like it at night. And then on to doing diagonal borders. Again, because I have Construction Anarchy on, I can put them really close together, makes it look like wooden slats and boards. And I think it looks pretty nice, actually. So there we go. And just kind of follow the track, trying not to also run into the track, so the track is already banking some areas, and then finishing up with the trestle work into the Dino pit, or no, you can call it the Dino pit. So I'm going to let you guys go soon, and you guys get to see the POV of the final creation of Big Thunder Mountain Railroad, and it will be on the workshop, so see you guys later.
Howdy, partners! For your safety, remain seated with your hands, arms, feet, and legs inside the train, and be sure to watch your kids. If any of you folks are wearing hats or glasses, best remove them, because this here's the wildest ride in the wilderness!
Para su seguridad, permanezca sentado y mantenga sus manos, brazos, pies y piernas dentro del tren. Cuide a sus pequeñitos. Muchas gracias.